What's going on, guys? JPS back for another video, and today we're going to be reacting to why American tourists are being rejected worldwide in 2025. I think some of us may already have some ideas as to why that's happening, but I thought this would be an interesting video to check out amid the current state of affairs. Consider joining the Patreon, guys. First link in description for full reactions to British TV shows, movies, and albums. A lot of good content over there. No pressure though. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get right into it.
Did you know that over 70% of American travelers now say they're treated differently abroad, and not in a good way? That number says more than you'd think. They're noticing colder service, awkward questions, and in some cases, outright hostility. From protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City to a wave of
I already knew that was Mexico City. I already knew that. Because there's a bunch of rich Americans coming in and gentrifying the place. So I understand where they're coming from. But this is tourists. We're not talking about immigrants.
The U.S. Embassy in Mexico City to a wave of anti-American sentiment across Europe and beyond. To subtle pushback
Whoa. Wow. Scandinavian countries really not feeling us. That's crazy.
Across Europe and beyond. To subtle pushback in cafes and shops around the world, something has shifted. American tourists, once welcomed almost everywhere, are now facing a growing wave of resentment. So what's really driving this backlash, and why is it getting worse in 2025? In this video, we're breaking down 6 real reasons the world is growing tired of U.S. tourists. And what needs to change before it gets even worse. But before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. Because this isn't just a travel video. It's a reality check for anyone who thinks an American passport still guarantees a warm welcome. In 2025, American tourists aren't just being noticed. They're being recorded, ridiculed, and shared online. From Reddit to TikTok, tourist shaming has become a global pastime, and U.S. travelers are often the stars. Entire threads are dedicated to moments where American visitors come across as loud, oblivious, or entitled. I've
certainly seen some of those moments. I think one of the biggest is when Americans are being so loud in a public restaurant or cafe. So like the entire restaurant can hear them, because that's not how a lot of people throughout Europe speak. They don't need to speak at that volume. And Americans are just so oblivious to this. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to not adapting to the place that they're traveling to and just trying to trampling over everything, pretending that being American trumps everything. And that's just not a very nice thing to do. And it's not how anyone should travel. You should be very considerate of where you're visiting and what those people are like if you want to have a good experience. But
story describes an American parent at Stonehenge urging their child to go climb on the big rocks. Another recalled a woman in France asking if a group of medieval reenactors were Syrian refugees. And in a quiet spot in England, believed to be tied to the legend of King Arthur, an American tourist looked around and said, "Where's the goddamn castle?" It might sound like harmless culture shock, but online, these moments fuel something deeper. On Reddit and travel forums, locals and fellow travelers regularly vent about typical American tourists, snapping selfies at memorial sites, demanding English-only service, or ignoring basic etiquette. And all of it feeds into an old stereotype that's now gone viral again. The ugly American, loud, entitled, and culturally unaware. This isn't about one rude traveler or one awkward moment. It's about a global perception that's building, one post at a time. And in 2025, every overlooked misstep is a potential headline. For American tourists, the margin for error is shrinking, and the world is no longer looking the other way. The backlash against American tourists isn't just digital. It's happening in the streets. From Europe to Latin America, locals are organizing, marching, and making one thing clear. They've had enough. Not just of tourism in general, but of the strain brought on by high-spending, high-impact travelers from the U.S. In Mexico City, protesters marched through Condesa and Roma, two neighborhoods flooded with American expats and remote workers. "Gringos, stop stealing our homes," they shouted as they rallied outside the U.S. Embassy. That same week, storefronts were vandalized and Airbnb listings were spray-painted with anti-American messages. What started as a housing crisis has turned into a cultural one, and American visitors are right at the center of it. And it's not just Mexico. In Spain, where over-tourism protests have become a near-weekly occurrence in cities like Barcelona and Mallorca, the U.S. Embassy issued a public alert to American citizens. The warning advised travelers to avoid large gatherings tied to anti-tourism sentiment and tensions related to the Middle East, two flashpoints where U.S. involvement is often front and center. These aren't just isolated outbursts, they're coordinated, emotional, and increasingly common. And when embassies start issuing warnings, it's not just travel anymore. It's reputational fallout. For many
That's
American
true.
tourists,
Damn, I did not expect this video to be this good. I'm gonna be honest, guys. But let me know your thoughts on these situations. The Mexico City one, it sucks. Like I understand where they're coming from. You know, you have people coming in with money, build new stuff for them. Kind of erases what the old community looked like. That's just a tough, like, that's not a Mexico City isolated event. That's literally like everywhere throughout the United States as well, where, you know, gentrification is kind of tearing down old communities and creating new ones that lack identity and culture in some ways. The Spain situation, I can definitely see that, bro. I understand, like, the Barcelona, there's a lot of American tourists who go there and they go to Spain and Madrid for like semester abroads and holidays and things like that. So, and are those are probably the people who are showing up on TikTok videos being loud and obnoxious. So they've probably had enough. It's too many Americans going to Spain. I understand where they're coming from. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments section down below, guys. And maybe, I don't know. Maybe things will get better in the future, but I know that tensions are extremely high right now.
travel is about freedom. The freedom to explore, to speak English anywhere, to wear what you want, and to experience new cultures without changing your own habits. But in 2025, that mindset is creating real friction abroad. In Kyoto, Japan, local residents in the historic Gion district, known for its geisha traditions, implemented a ban on tourists entering certain alleys. The reason? Tourists, including many Americans, were harassing geishas for photos, filming without permission, and ignoring posted signs. After years of warnings, locals had enough.
Damn.
It's not an isolated case. From religious sites in Thailand to dress codes in the Middle East, stories keep surfacing about American visitors refusing to adapt. Tour guides report frustration with U.S. tourists who walk into temples with shoes on, wear revealing clothing in conservative areas, or treat sacred landmarks like photo ops. In Vietnam, one American was seen wearing a t-shirt covered in guns and the words, "Freedom, the American Way," while touring a museum that documents the devastation of the U.S.-led war. That moment, caught on camera, quickly became a symbol of cultural disconnect.
Yeah.
These clashes aren't always loud or aggressive.
That's not cultural disconnect. That's just ignorance from the American.
Often they're small
yeah,
moments
it's
of
disconnect.
misunderstanding, but they leave lasting impressions. Because in many countries, the problem isn't that Americans show up. It's that they show up without listening.
Facts.
In 2025, American tourists are no longer just traveling. They're representing a country the world is rapidly losing faith in. In Canada, just 19% of people believe the U.S. will have a positive influence on the world, a historic low for America's closest ally. In Germany, favorability has plunged since the 2024 election. And across Europe, the message is clear. More countries now view the U.S. negatively than ever before. Even more shocking? According to the Democracy Perception Index, China is now viewed more favorably than the United States in most of the world, a reversal that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. These aren't just numbers.
It's still
they're
unthinkable.
signals. And American tourists are caught in their shadow. Today, U.S. travelers are being advised to avoid political clothing, skip controversial topics, and even soften their accents in tense environments. Some are coached on how to respond to loaded questions abroad. Others quietly claim they're Canadian, just to avoid uncomfortable conversations.
Yo, pulling the Canadian card is probably the best thing you can do out of all that stuff. I'm going to be honest. America would be like, soften my accent. I'm not going to change who I am. Who are you telling to do that? Like, that's what we're working with right now, guys. So it's just not going to work out for those people. I don't think you have to do any of that stuff. I think you just need to be respectful, lower your voice a little bit, and be nice to people. And you're going to get along with them just fine. It's all these loud mouths who don't know how to shut up and also to be a bit respectful who are causing us all these issues. Like, bro, a lot of Europe already doesn't like us because of our recent leadership. So read the room a little bit. You know what I mean? The tension is already high. I don't care who you like as a supporter. You have to agree with that because it's just true. It's like you can feel it in the air. The animosity towards Americans is there in a lot of countries throughout Europe.
Because in 2025, saying you're American doesn't always spark curiosity. It can spark judgment or silence. Tourism used to be about where you're going. Now, for American visitors, it's just as much about what you're bringing with you. A reputation the world no longer overlooks. One of the clearest signs that the world is rethinking American tourism? It's showing up in visa rules. For decades, U.S. passport holders enjoyed near universal access. No paperwork, no questions, just a stamp and a smile. But now, countries are quietly rewriting the rules. Brazil, once visa-free for Americans, has reinstated entry requirements in 2025. Across Europe, the long-delayed ETIAS system is finally moving forward, forcing Americans to apply in advance just to visit. Even the UK, one of America's oldest allies, now requires pre-authorization before entry.
Damn.
These aren't just technical updates. They're symbols of something deeper. The world's trust in American travelers is slipping. And that shift doesn't end with a form. U.S. tourists are reporting longer lines, extra screening, and more probing questions. Not about what's in their bags, but about what their presence means. Embassy warnings now urge Americans to avoid politically sensitive areas, not because they're unsafe for everyone, but because they might not be safe for you. Because in 2025, the borders haven't just changed on the map. They've changed in the way Americans are seen. And for travelers used to being waved through, the hesitation says everything. For years, locals adjusted. They put up with rising prices, tourist menus, and foreign-owned Airbnbs, all in the name of economic growth.
Yeah.
But in 2025, many feel they've reached a breaking point. In cities like Lisbon, Tulum, and Athens, entire neighborhoods were reshaped around the needs of American visitors. Family-run cafes turned into Instagram-friendly brunch spots. Markets replaced local goods with souvenirs. Long-term rentals vanished, replaced by short-term listings priced for remote workers from New York or...
This is facts, though. Especially, like, the Airbnb takeover. Like, they bought up so many buildings and places in cities, in European cities. And they're really driving that tourist economy. Like, that company, Airbnb, man. Imagine how much they make. Because I've booked on Airbnb before. Their platform fee is quite high. So they're making a shit ton of money. And I mean, there's a market for it, but I really do feel where these people are coming from, especially locals. Like, no one wants to be living next to an Airbnb where there's, someone coming in every couple of days, every week, just, vacation, partying, doing whatever. Like, it's not a fun experience, especially when they're Americans and you're not liking them. So I definitely understand where everyone is coming from.
Long-term rentals vanished, replaced by short-term listings priced for remote workers from New York or LA. At first, it felt like opportunity. Now it feels like erasure. Locals describe the shift as slow but relentless, their cities becoming more profitable as destinations than as communities. And while Americans may see charm, affordability, or escape, residents are seeing something else: displacement. Even those who depend on tourism feel conflicted. Yes, the dollars help. But the daily cost, in housing, culture, and identity keeps rising.
I gotta
And
say, I know we're talking about some nasty stuff here, but man, that restaurant looks crazy right on the coast. And these aerial views. This has to be like Greece or I don't think this is Portugal. I don't know. These places look amazing, guys. There is so much beauty in Europe. I'm assuming this B-roll footage is from
the
Europe.
daily cost in housing, culture, and identity keeps rising. And increasingly, the frustration is directed
Maybe
at
this
those
is
who can
Portugal.
afford to visit, while locals struggle to stay. Because what used to feel like sharing a place now feels like losing it. And for many around the world, American tourism isn't just changing neighborhoods. It's pushing people out of them. After everything we've seen, one thing is clear. The world isn't rejecting American tourists because they're American. It's rejecting the behaviors that come with them. And that means this story isn't finished. It can still change. Travelers today are being told to dress more modestly, avoid loud political conversations, and leave the flag gear at home. But those are just surface-level fixes. The deeper shift is about attitude. It's about understanding that showing up with money isn't the same as showing up with respect.
Facts.
That not everything needs to be in English. That not every
Facts.
city wants to be a backdrop for content.
Facts.
And that listening, really listening, goes further than any travel tip ever will. The best travelers aren't the ones who act like guests at a resort. They're the ones who move through the world with awareness, not assumptions.
Oh.
In 2025, the global welcome is still there, but it's no longer unconditional. Americans who travel thoughtfully, who adapt, who engage with humility, they're still received with kindness.
Of course.
Because while the world may be tired of the stereotype, it's still open to the ones willing to travel with humility and without the stereotype. This video wasn't meant to shame. It was meant to observe a shift.
Very good conclusion at the end here. We don't need to. They've been repeating the same thing at this point. I like the way that the video ended because it's true. It's not targeted at all Americans. And I experienced that. I don't know if things have gotten worse in the past few months because I traveled to Europe and the UK this summer, and I didn't experience any issues at border control. You know, they always ask, in the past few years, they've asked me, what am I doing there? I'm just saying I'm on vacation. Where am I going? You know, I tell them where I'm going. It's not a big deal. Just trying to see what's up. So I didn't experience any differences this summer when I was traveling, but this is a recent video, and obviously tensions have exploded, I would say, over the past few months since I traveled there to Europe. So I'll have to let you guys know what the difference is when I come again. But I'll definitely be cautious with my approach. Make sure I'm not too loud. I think that's the biggest thing. We're so used to speaking at such a loud volume in the United States. And I know that it's not. I wish it wasn't the case, but yeah, I guess it's a norm here. I don't know. But really good video. Definitely better than I expected. Will be linked down below. Let me know your thoughts on U.S. tourists as of recently, and if you guys plan on coming to the United States. Hit that like button, hit subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.